Well, hello and welcome to the Smells Like Money podcast. Join me, Suzanne Chin Taylor, the DooDoo Diva, as I interview guests who are making an impact on how we manage and operate systems for conveying and treating wastewater. As a veteran of the wastewater, trenchless, and civil infrastructure industry, each week I'll be bringing you industry know-how from industry pros who know how. Join me each week as I speak with representatives of organizations that are utilizing disruptive or new technologies and methods, and executives who are excited to share how to be successful and sustainable in our vital industry. So whether you want to learn about the latest trends in technology, in treatment or trenchless, gain tips on training and retaining great talent, or simply how to be more efficient, productive, or profitable, this podcast is for you. Ready? Let's dive right in. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DooDoo Diva Smells Like Money podcast. Today, we are visiting with Harry Hermes IV. And how many generations you'll share that with us of Rainstopper. And for those of you not familiar with this company, I'm going to let Harry introduce it. But he is this is a multi-generational company, still family owned and operated, which I think is kind of a really interesting thing in our industry, not that's slowly disappearing. And so with that, Harry, take it away.
Yeah, so our company Rainstopper has been around for pretty close to 50 years. I think we're coming up on our 45th to 46th year. 3 generations. It started with my grandfather, David Nethery. He started the company, gosh, I'm going to forget the date, but around 46 years ago. And he started selling, initially we were a pipe and supply house, and the bottom kind of fell out on that. And so he moved into inserts. He saw companies were selling those and he saw how valuable they could be. As far as we know, we're the first stainless steel manhole insert in America. And we've been selling inserts now for about 46 years. So my grandfather ran it up until about 2017, 2018, when he passed away. And my siblings and I jumped in, and then they handed me the torch. And so now I'm the one running with it.
Okay.
Yep.
So I wanted to talk to the audience today, something you and I discussed offline. And what really intrigued me when you reached out to be on the podcast was how we're addressing I&I. And you made an interesting comment about a shift in approach of, instead of looking at the infiltration as being a huge culprit, that we need to equally put emphasis on stopping the inflow. And I want to understand, what did you mean by that? Like a different approach, fix the inflow, not the infiltration.
Yeah, so this is kind of simple talk. We're not engineers. So we talk very simply, and our products are very simple. And so water is going to follow the easiest path possible into the sewer system, and that's the surface. And so what we've seen just with installation of like inserts is that it eliminates peaks almost immediately in a treatment system. So you'll get that water access prolonged. And so what we've seen, what has never really added up to me to make sense, is why cities start with like CIPP and then they move into manhole rehab and all of that, when your first culprit is inflow. Generally speaking, at least through cities that we worked with, we've been able to get flow data from them. That water is going to access it no matter what, but for a fraction of the price, you can really start combating your inflow and start saving money immediately. And a lot of times that will highlight where your infiltration really is.
So when you say inserts, describe what that means and where is it deployed?
So we sell a multitude of products, but our main kind of bread and butter product is our manhole insert. And so that goes underneath the manhole lid just to keep rainwater out of the sewer system. And they're in stainless steel or plastic. We customize them to any size the city may need. But then there's other avenues of inflow and infiltration. So there's also water coming in from cleanouts, and we've worked with cities to educate, and cities have actually sold, they're almost like lock valves for them, for homeowners to install themselves. It's just you can buy them from Granger for like $6,
Hmm.
and it just locks out water from your cleanout. And so we've sold that. We sell some of those, as well as just valve savers that keep dirt and debris out of valve boxes as well.
Okay. Well, now, how does the insert differ on a manhole from, let's say, these composite or smart covers?
So smart covers and composite, they do the same thing in a lot of ways. The main difference is this is kind of older technology. So this is going to be installed in your cast iron. A lot of the new composites are really combating our products because they're self-installing and they're bolting down with gaskets. So where we kind of separate ourselves from them is a lot of cities don't have budgets to do new installs for something like that. And so we've been around for 40 plus years. We have enough models that if, your city with a small budget that can't afford to replace, 400 covers, you can, for a fraction of the price, you can install inserts.
Now, is this something that is installed by the city, or is it done by a separate contractor that they would come in to get the equipment from, or get the product from you and then install it?
So all of it. So we work with contractors to do installations for cities as well as the city. We've really moved to advocating for a lot of our products for city to install, because just so that way they have a better understanding of their system. We work with them saying, hey, you can really install this, and that way you're keeping money in your pocket, which is such a problem for so many municipalities who don't have a budget. It's like, this takes 3 minutes to install. If I
Oh,
can
that's it.
install it, you can install it. So we advocate for cities to do it themselves, and that way at the worst case scenario, they're looking inside every manhole, and they might could see another problem arising, that maybe a contractor wouldn't necessarily alert them of. But yeah, so we advocate for both. Anybody could install these. I had a guy call us 3 weeks ago. He stole one out of the city's manhole in front of his house, and he made a bird bath out of it. And he was like, I need to get another one to reinstall. I was like, we will sell you one, but you have to go put that thing back. So
Why?
if he could do it, anybody could do it.
That's a good one. Make it into a bird bath. So, do you see something like this as cities looking at it as, not that it's going to be the end all and be all to lock out all of the, I that comes into a system, but it certainly can help augment everything else that they might be doing. How often do these things need to be replaced? Is it a short-term fix? Like, how long does it last? Or is this really like a long term? Like, how long can they expect for it to be in the ground and perform?
So I'm a terrible salesman because I always kind of talk down on some of our products, but stainless, we offer our stainless. We say it'll last about 50 years,
Okay.
just based on the materials alone, and that's with our extended life gasket. However, that depends on how often you're using it, the people that are accessing the holes, and how they're treating them. Plastic can last, we say, about 15 years. However, it's going to fall in. This is where I become a bad salesman. Typically, these fall in and they're going to cause you issues. I love selling plastic because you're going to buy a lot more. But every city that calls, we try and push them towards stainless because you're going to have less problems with it.
I'm going to
I'm a
ask you. I'm
300.
going to ask
Yeah,
you
go
a
ahead.
loaded question here.
Sure.
We don't like to talk about this, but it does happen. SSOs. What happens to these inserts in the event of an SSO or a major wet weather event, which, as you know from seeing the weather reports, these 50-year rain events are now coming much more frequently? How does it withstand, or what happens in those scenarios?
So that's a great question because we don't ever advertise any of this or really talk about it. But these massive SSOs, we sell two products. First, to cover like flood mitigation, I would say our stainless steel inserts were tested for New York City's MTA. When Hurricane, I believe it was Sandy, came through, Sandy or Sally, I get them mixed up. It came through. it had about 16 feet of water above the subway systems. That's so after that, the city allotted, I think it was $5 or $6 billion to eliminating water in their subway system. And we were spec'd in to do that. And so our stainless steel inserts were tested at over 2,000 hours with 16 feet of water on them. Which is a big help for a lot of cities who, I'm seeing more and more, at least on LinkedIn, cities are raising their manhole covers 13 feet in the air with riser rings. And those are a easy failure point. The other aspect is the SSOs pushing the inserts up. If that's a common issue within your city, we call it our lifesaver because it's a life-saving device on our end. And when it pushes that lid up, our insert will allow it acts as like a hinge. So it'll go up, but it has a cable tying it down so it won't leave, and it'll come back down. So you're not left with just a gaping hole. And so that's why we call it our lifesaver. It saves kids' lives. That was the thought around it. Some little kid running around falling down a 15-foot hole. I think that really kind of covers a lot of it. Maybe, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of what I typically talk to with engineers that maybe don't know or understand the product. And a lot of it would be along the lines of how much, really what the goal of these products are is not just to eliminate it, but to prolong that treatment, because to eliminate that spike.
So, Harry, looking at this from a standpoint of, I&I and what severe I&I during a weather event or whatever is happening is coming into a wastewater treatment plant, which is, throwing them out of compliance. It's really putting a burden on them for capacity. Let's talk about, you had spoken to me about how this can help with slowing that spike or eliminating that spike to help with the pressures that don't need to be coming in to a wastewater treatment plant during a major event when there is a lot of flow.
Yeah, absolutely. Really what I kind of touched on it earlier, but the path of least resistance, this is one of the only access points on the surface are manholes for a lot of our sewer system. And so that's the easiest path for water to get into. And so with inserts, or I'll even talk about the composite lids, removing that inflow and reducing it immediately, what it allows that water to do is disperse across your system and have that slower time of the water getting into the points of infiltration. So like the cracked pipes. And so what we've seen with cities and their treatment centers is that their spike, instead of going up, into a large scale, it doesn't jump and spike up. It just prolongs it. So you're dealing with your treatment, typically the same treatment, I would say, over a longer point of time, which also helps eliminate a lot. I mean, I think on average we see a 15% minimum reduction just with inserts of any inserts, even our competitors. A city will see a 15% reduction. As well as just the spikes and emergency. Our goal with a lot of these cities is to eliminate. I don't like hearing public works directors talking about sleeping in their office on Christmas because it rained, and they don't get the same, our public works directors don't get the same, I guess, notoriety as like police officers and firemen, but they're just as valuable in a lot of ways. It's one of the only, what do they say? This sewer industry is one of the only industries that impacts millions of people every single day.
I would agree with that. And unfortunately, it's very misunderstood.
Yeah.
It's undervalued, unappreciated, and misunderstood. Kind of like the unwanted red-haired stepchild in the room, but so very, very, very needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I remember growing up and hearing my grandfather tell me, like, a mayor will rather build a hospital with his name on it than invest half of that money into a sewer system. And so far he's been right. Unfortunately, he's been right so far.
And unfortunately, a good sewer system could prevent a lot of the cases that show up at a hospital.
Yeah, I believe that.
I'll just lean here. This is my hero on the wall here. For those of you who are just listening and can't see it, I have a beautiful a watercolor portrait of Gandhiji, and who was once touted as saying that sanitation is just as important as freedom.
I didn't know that, but I believe that.
Because if we don't have sanitation, good sanitation, it impacts our health. And without our health, what's the point?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Yep. And so on that note, I want to thank you for coming on the show. You just said something that kind of sparked a conversation that I want to continue having with you. For those of you who are tuning in, Harry and I are going to continue a conversation about some other topics related to the industry. One that kind of ties in with the fact that Harry's company is a multi-generation company, still family owned and operated, and some things that we've been seeing in the industry as far as shifts away from, family businesses and what that's going to mean for us. So stay tuned for another episode with Harry, where we're going to be diving into this, and also some of his thoughts on how we can really improve the image of our industry to encourage more people to join this dynamic field of work that he and I have chosen as our life's work. And how can we get the word out and share the little known secret of what a wonderful place this is to be and be a part of. And so again, thank you, Harry, for coming on the show, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And until next time, keep it flowing. Thanks so much for joining me, the DooDoo Diva, on this week's episode of Smells Like Money. What stood out to you this week? Share your takeaways by leaving me a review. You can find out more about the new technologies, creating sustainable solutions, and insights on how to succeed in our vital industry by subscribing to the show. Whether you want to learn about the latest trends in wastewater infrastructure, treatment, or trenchless, you've got it all right here at Smells Like Money. If you're an industry expert and would like to be considered as a guest for the show, book a quick chat with me by visiting calendly.com/the2it group/B-A-podcast-guest, or simply click the link in the show notes below. Until next week, a big shout out to all my industry friends and those who will be. You are my superheroes. Thanks for tuning in, keeping it flowing, and we'll see you all next week.